Thanks everybody for showing up after a nice lunch, I'm sure. And I appreciate that you're still here after a long weekend. Any rumors that I slept on the floor last night are not true. It was somebody else. And these guys, well, here's the witness here, right, Marky? I didn't sleep on the floor, did I?
No, wait. Dude, I don't know I don't remember coming home, so.
Anyway, it was somebody else named Mario, and there's only 2 Marios in the camp, so. Anyway, my name is Mario, and I work for MediaCurrent. Today we'll talk about responsive images in Drupal 8. And any of you was at the responsive images session yesterday? Okay. A lot of what you saw there will obviously still apply because obviously it's still the topic, but we're gonna kind of make the focus a little bit more Drupal 8 and show you what some of the differences are between how you can accomplish responsive images in Drupal 7 and now the way it is in Drupal 8. So let's see, does this work? Oh, let me move this to the other screen. Okay. So that's me. I work for MediaCurrent. I'm a front-end developer. My skin looks very dark for whatever reason. I am dark, but not that dark.
And
so, what was that?
You look older.
Yeah,
I do.
You're getting younger. You look way.
Well, I have the Benjamin Button syndrome, so I age reversely. So, MediaCurrent, great company. This gentleman here don't represent everybody that works at MediaCurrent, so please don't judge us just based on Bob, Derek, and Marky. Most of us are nice and good looking. So, but no, great company to work with. We're based off Atlanta. We are 100% remote, distributed. Work with great clients, excellent team. These guys are just awesome. Bob here is, if you are a subscriber of the weekly drop, he's the guy behind this weekly drop. So you owe him a beer or a couple.
Yeah.
If you get those.
So I'm his surrogate.
So yeah, so Mark is the one who will cash that. So anyway, we do everything: design, development, digital strategy, SEO, everything else. So highly recommend you look into our careers page. We're always looking for great talent, so we will welcome your applications. Here are the topics that we'll be talking about today. Basically, we're going to go over very quickly, since some of you already saw the presentation from yesterday, what some of the issues with images are in general, and what the problem is that we're trying to solve. We'll talk about breakpoints, because that has changed a little bit in Drupal 8 compared to Drupal 7. The picture element, which is still the big player on this whole solution for responsive images. But we're also going to focus on the source set and sizes attribute that are attributes of the image tag and the picture element as well. And you can use both those attributes independently of the picture element, which is great because then the support issue that may exist is no longer an issue because now image is obviously 100% supported by all the browsers. Then we'll talk about how Drupal approaches this solution and how to configure Drupal 8 to be able to make all this work together and give you responsive images. And that will be done through a demo that hopefully won't break. So this past week, I wrote a blog post on this very specific topic. So if you want to get a little more detail about that, you can head over to mediacurrent.com/blog and look for the blog post. And I go a little more into detail about the source set, sizes, attributes, and how Drupal 8 takes advantage of those. So the problem is that, ever since Ethan Marcotte started talking about responsive design, everybody started to adopt responsive design. And to me, I've been talking about responsive design for quite a while. And it seems like everything responsive design is pretty much been sorted out, media queries, grids. But the one thing that remains to be provided a solution, an official solution, is images. Because there's so many ways you can go about providing images on a website, but we're always looking for the most efficient, the less expensive way for providing images. Not only look great, but it also are not heavy in weight and that doesn't cost you a lot when you're downloading the images. So let me quickly move this here. And so responsive images is the one thing that some people are still figuring out. We are looking excellent when it comes to that. We're looking really good with coming out with a solution. And I think where we are as of now is to me probably the way that we are going to go moving forward, because you'll see in a minute that we are able to address a lot of issues that existed before, things like performance, file sizes, serving the right image to the different devices. So that is very promising, and I think this is probably the way that we're going to go. Next year I may have a different story, but for as of today, that's the way it seems. So the main problem is images in HTML, content images. It's how do we provide this, the best image possible without having to download multiple images or download the wrong image to a device. And the main issue is maybe mobile devices, especially on areas where there's people who mobile devices is the only thing they have available to browse the internet or to get content. So we want to make sure that we're not really costing them, because they're literally paying for every byte that they download. And so by providing the wrong image, we can really cost those people a lot of money. There's also issue in CSS, because even though we can provide, as you can see here, media queries, we're still in a way telling the browser what to do. And we are at a stage now that the browsers are really smart, and they can make a lot smarter decisions than we can based on the conditions of our environment, whether it's the network conditions, screen resolutions, and things like that. So by using media queries, we're still telling the browser here, if the viewport is this size, download this image. If it's this other size, download this other image. So what if, and the one thing that always comes to mind to me is, if we're basing everything in just, let's say, screen size, which is normally the case, what if I'm using a laptop like this, but I have a really poor connection or an unreliable connection? I'll still be given a large image, even though my connection is really, really poor. And so screen size alone is not the way to go. There's got to be other ways in which we can provide the best image possible to a device. So like I said before, the media query say, look, we say to the browser, I don't know how big your viewport is, but if it's this big, I'll serve this image. If it's this big, then serve this other image, except when it's a 3-column layout and things like that. So there's just, it's like a contingency plan that we are determining what to do about the browser serving the right image. So there are other ways. And what the solution looks like, it should be that we want our images to deliver one final source. We don't want to download multiple images. That will cost us. That could affect performance. So we want to make sure that we are serving the right one piece of content only at any given time. They want to be semantic. We put a lot of effort into making sure that our websites are semantic, that we use the right markup. And so we're going to make sure that images don't jeopardize that for us when we build websites. Accessible. We are Media Current. We put a lot of effort into making sure that our websites are accessible. We work on accessible projects. And so we want to make sure that images play along with accessibility, because even though somebody may not actually directly get access to an image, we want to make sure that we provide ways in which images can still be accessible to screen readers or any other type of accessibility issues. Backwards compatible. So if we are using a technique that seems to work well, but there are issues with it, we want to make sure that we're able to provide a fallback way for that image to still be provided to the client. Even if it's not the optimal image, we still want to be able to provide something to the client that so the website will break. Accommodate art direction. There are times when, and this is more an issue of when it comes to the picture element. Art direction is basically when you are trying to customize the image and be able to provide a specific area of the image per device. I may have an image that is big and it offers a lot, but on the small devices it may not make sense to display the entire image. We may just want to focus on one area of the image. So that's what art direction basically is, and that's kind of the solution that we're looking for. Work independently of language technology, obviously. and it's something that complies with web standards, basically. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, by the way, with any questions. That excludes you, so please don't interrupt me. Breakpoint. I want to talk about breakpoints because in Drupal 7, we saw yesterday that you can actually go into the GUI of Drupal 7 and create your breakpoints through the Breakpoints module. In Drupal 8, we are now Breakpoints is now part of core. You don't have, it's not a contributed module anymore. It's already part of core and it's already enabled by default. But the other difference on Drupal 8 when it comes to breakpoints is that they are now stored in a YAML file. So you will use your theme name, in the case our Bartik theme, breakpoints.yaml, and that will sit in the root of your theme folder. And here's where you declare all your breakpoints. The beauty of this is that it's now exportable. You can version control them. You can share them easily. You don't have to go into a GUI to be able to declare those breakpoints. Yes, there.
So you can't. There is no GUI anymore. You can't export them with features. You only define them there.
Right. This is the. I don't know if there's a GUI, to be honest with you. I've never used a GUI. I don't see a GUI when I go to the configuration screen on Drupal. I don't see a GUI the same way I do see it on Drupal 7.
Okay.
So here's what that YAML file looks like. Very few items, a couple important items here. Well, everything is important, but just to describe what each of those mean. Obviously, we have our theme name, and then the breakpoint name. And that will be, think of that as the machine name, theme name, breakpoint name. Then we have the label, which will be the human readable name for that breakpoint, and that can be anything. You can call it mobile or small or large, anything you want. Then we have a media query, and obviously in a mobile-first approach, for mobile-first, we don't need any media query because anything that we start with is already for mobile, so there's no need to specify any type of media query, and that's why you see on line 3 that is empty, because that will be mobile-first. The weight is very important, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, because the weight determines the order in which the browser will render or will try to check for those breakpoints when it's rendering the page. So if we have the wrong order in place, we can end up serving the wrong image, because the browser will honor the first breakpoint that is able to match, and it will ignore everything else, even if that breakpoint is wrong. So, and then we have the multipliers. The multipliers is, by default, this particular breakpoint YAML file comes with just 1x, and that's just a regular resolution image. But if you add multipliers like 2x or 1.5x, that means you want to support higher resolution images, retina display images. So in the case of mobile, I've added 2x, saying we want to be able to, for mobile devices, we want to support high density images for those kind of screens. And then we have the narrow breakpoint, and same thing. Now in this case, on line 10, you see that there is now a media query. I modified this because the default one comes with the minimum width and then maximum width as well. I just left it at minimum width. And so that's pretty straightforward. As you can see there, you can use ems if you like instead of pixels. And to me personally, I like to use minimum width more than anything else, because any styles that I do can be carried on to the next breakpoint. I don't have to change anything unless I want to change it. Otherwise, those styles will continue to apply to the subsequent breakpoints. And finally, we have the wide breakpoint, same principle there. So that's what breakpoints look like now on Drupal 8. To me, it's easier. You can just copy an example of the Bartik breakpoint file and put it on your theme and modify as you need, and that's it, you're done. And now when you go into configure responsive images on Drupal 8, you will see these breakpoints available to you to choose from and be able to configure responsive images. Any questions about breakpoints? Okay. Let's see. So one of the things that we talked about that we can do a lot with is the picture element. Now the picture element, the argument is that picture elements should only be used for should only be used for art direction. Is when we want to be able to manipulate our images and be able to maybe crop a specific area of the image to serve to a device. And for anything else, for resolution switching, it's called. We don't need the picture element. We can just do away with source set and sizes. Those are two attributes that you can use within the picture element, but you can also use them with just within the image tag. And that provides you even better support from the browser, because the image tag is 100% supported by all browsers, whereas the picture element still lacks some browser support. However, in combination with Picturefill, which is a polyfill, a JavaScript polyfill, that closes the gap of support and becomes pretty much 100% supported. The beauty of the picture element in Drupal in general, whether 7 or 8, is that Picturefill already comes with that module. So you don't have to go and download a third party to incorporate it into your picture element. It's already part of the picture element. Yes, sir.
With the picture element in Drupal core, it's been a while since I looked at it. Does it provide any cropping for the different versions of the image?
No.
In the UI?
No, it does not. However, there is a module that I just learned about from is it James who did the talk yesterday? It's called manual crop, where it allows you to add the cropping capability as one of the effects on your image styles. So when you upload an image, you're actually able to crop it right there before you upload the image. And I think he did a demo on that yesterday. So if you catch his talk, you'll be able to see that. So yay! What's that?
We'll go back in time and catch that.
Okay, that sounds good. So again, the picture element, right, is a way for us to provide different images and also provide a fallback image in case something goes wrong. Because, as I said before, because of the Picturefill polyfill, the only time that you will really use a fallback image is if something goes wrong, like an error. Otherwise, the support is really good. But again, we have the problem here that we talked about earlier, is that we're still here, even with the picture element in this case here, we're still telling the browser which image to use based on the size of the image or the viewport. And that may work sometimes, but again, as the example that I gave, if I'm using a really poor connection, I will still get a large image, regardless, because I'm using a large device here. So this is not always the optimal way to go. It does work, and it works really well. But there are better ways to do it, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. As I said before, this is ideal for art direction, if you want to be able to crop pieces of the image and present a specific part of the image on a screen. Like here's a good example of art direction here. So we have a large image on a large, big screen. We can present the entire image. As its devices get smaller, we can start zooming in better into that image and provide a more consistent image, relevant image to the context that we're trying to provide there. So like the smartphone there, for example, we don't need to see anything that is around the person on the image. We want to focus specifically on that person there. So that's a good example of art direction. So the picture element is perfect for that, because we're able to say, for this screen size, use this image. For a smaller screen size, use this piece of the image. And Drupal, as I said before, we can use the manual crop module to be able to accomplish that art direction piece. Here's what can-I-use.com looks like when it comes to the picture element support. As you can see, anything that is red is bad. But again, with the Picturefill polyfill, that gap is closed, and it's pretty much everything becomes green. And the nice thing is that Drupal already offers that to us out of the box on the picture element. And so that's the Picturefill there. That's just the project page there, but again, you don't have to really do anything with it if you're using the Drupal module. So the gap that we just talked about, that gap of support, how can we identify that? And the issue is that as developers, there are things that we know about our environment or our assets when we're building our websites that the browser doesn't know. And vice versa, there are things that the browser knows about our environment that we don't know. And so that's where the gap exists. And so we want to be able to close that gap and be able to, the more information we give to the browser so it can make a smarter decision, the better. So the first gap that exists is you will see that the viewport dimensions, we may not know what those dimensions will be when somebody's viewing our website. We can kind of account for those dimensions by doing media queries and things like that, but we don't know that top of our head. The browser does know. It will know what type of dimensions we're using. The image size relative to the viewport, we know that. We may be looking at a wireframe or a markup of our website, and so we know how big we want those images to look in relative to the viewport of our screens, but the browser doesn't know that. The browser doesn't know how big we want those images to display on the browser. So there's a gap right there. Then we have the screen density. We don't know. We don't know what kind of devices people are using to view our website. The browser, again, will know what kind of screen density a device is when a website is being rendered. And finally, we have the source file dimensions. We will probably know the source files dimensions, especially if we're working with Drupal and we're creating image styles. We'll know how big those files will be, but the browser will not know that. So those are the gaps that we want to be able to close, especially on the browser side, because that way the browser can pick the best image possible to serve to any device. So here is what the source set and sizes markup looks like. And as you can see, that I'm not using the picture element. I'm using the image tag, which to me is a better way to go than using the picture element, because there's really no need for the picture element here. And so the way this works is we have our source tag, and that's just the default. You can think of that as the backup source for our image in case something goes wrong. The source set is basically a combination of images that we're saying to the browser, look, here we have this bunch of images for you to choose from when you're rendering this page. And in addition, what we're doing there, we are also providing the width, the true width of those images by using the W, the width descriptor there. And some people wonder, why not height? It's not really not necessary. Everything pretty much is around the width of the image. So by providing the width of the image, we are already giving the browser something that it didn't know before about our images. And let me see here. So that's that. Let me go to the next piece here. The source set. Now for the source set, for the sizes, we are using, we're saying based on the screen size that we're using, here's how wide this image should be rendered in relation to the viewport. If the maximum width of the image is 20 ems, the image will be about 30% of the viewport. So the VW unit is basically viewport width, and that each unit is equal to 1%. So in the case of 30, we have 30%. If the maximum width of the device is 30 ems, our image should be about 60% of the viewport width, and so on for the next one. 90%, and finally our alt tag, which is for accessibility purposes, we want to provide alternate text on our images. Yes?
In this example, if you had a viewport that was greater than 40 EMs, would you get the small image?
That's a very good question. Because the way it's not written here this way, but what you can do, let's say in the first example, line 6, you can say maximum width 20%, 20 ems, and then it will be 30%, and then comma, and then you can say 100 VW. So that means if it's anything outside of that screen width that you're specifying there, then it'll be 100% of the viewport width.
Okay, yeah, I had that backwards. I meant to say when it's greater than 90%, then so to fix that, you'd have to have the extra part added on.
Right, you can just add another value of comma 100 VW after 30 VW there.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're going to do later is we're saying if the minimum width is between this and this, the image should be about 30% of the width. Otherwise, we'll provide another value that it'll say, otherwise, it'll be 100% of the width. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it knows which image to use based on the width of the viewport. Let's see here. So that's what it all, and there are many ways in which we can write this. For example, we can just use one media query there and do what we were just talking about. In this case, we're accounting for different ones. and providing, but this is just a full markup. And the ideal use case for this is for resolution switching. It's for not for art direction, but resolution switching, meaning that you simply want to provide a different size image, but without really manipulating the image at all. Just a maybe a smaller or bigger image size, depending on the device size that you want to target. Okay, let's see here. Here we go. Here's an example of resolution switching, just being able to scale down or up on the image based on what you're trying to do there. So if we go back to our table now, and we say, okay, now that we have the source set and the sizes attributes, that we can now identify additional information on our images, and we can now pass that on to our browser, how does that work now? The gap that existed before, where before we had the viewport dimensions, the browser already knew that. Now, the image size relative to the viewport, now we can provide it to the browser via the sizes attribute. So the browser now knows about that. It already knew about the screen density. And the image sizes that we are using now, the browser can know about those by using the source set attribute that we're now providing, that combination of images that we were providing to the browsers. Now here's all these images. You can choose the best one that you think is the best to provide when you're rendering the page. Any questions about this? Because I think this is one of the most important things, is that this was not possible before without the source set and the sizes attributes, and that was creating a lot of the issues that we're experiencing with images on our website. Yes?
I understand how this would work when I build a site for a client. Once I turn that site over to the client, is there a module or something that prompts the client to upload 3 different files in 3 different sizes so that that continues? Or does it break as soon as you give it over to the client?
No, the way this works, now this is the general, pretty much, development way of getting to that solution. But in the Drupal ecosystem, the way we accomplish that is by using image styles. And so the image styles is what allows you to create those multiple versions of that image.
Okay.
So you will create, let's say you create 3 versions of the image, one for large, medium, small. So every time you upload an image, the image style creates separate versions of the same image for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? And just so you know, I said earlier that this is probably the way things are going, because as you can see, the picture element, the source set and sizes attributes are now being drafted into HTML5.1 specification. So you can read a little more about that. So this is important because a lot of people are saying, we're trying to provide high resolution images. We want to do that, but you have to kind of identify what your needs are, right? And by letting the browser determine a lot of those requirements, it can provide the right image to the right device, because a high resolution image display on a low resolution display, it looks like a low resolution image. So just something to keep in mind. So how does this work in Drupal? Can somebody ask me?
How does it work in Drupal?
Oh, so glad you asked. Thank you very much. Okay, so Drupal 8 specifically, right? So you already saw what Drupal 7 does. The first thing to know is we've talked about the picture element, and in Drupal 7 we have the picture element module, right? That's what you use. You download that. It's a contrib module. In Drupal 8 is named responsive images module, and it's part of core. You don't have to download anything. It's already there. Just keep that in mind. The Breakpoint module is still called Breakpoints, but in Drupal 8 it's part of core. And now we have we also be using what I said before. We're using the image styles to be able to put it all together. So what did I say there? Yeah. So other part of core. So let's see what demo. Any questions before we jump into demo? And I'm hoping that this works. Let's see. Let me start by closing this. And I think I'm going to turn on mirroring so I can see the same thing here. This is very small for me here. Okay. Okay. Display. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see here. Where was the other one? Wasn't that? I think it was, let me open this. Sorry about that. I had the browser open here. It might just be, is it here? Yeah, this is not enough here. Okay, so here's this is the RC2, and I really haven't done much test with this with RC2. I tested on beta 15, I think it was, and so I hope things still work the same. So we have just a pretty vanilla install of Drupal 8 here. The thing that I did already ahead of time, just so you guys are not going through the pain of watching me do this, is I created 3 image styles already, which is what I said before. I created a banner large, banner medium, and banner small. So the idea is that we're going to have an image that has a different viewport width. We're going to display different sizes of that same image to demonstrate what we're talking about here. So once we have our image styles, those are just normal image styles. There's nothing special about those image styles, just a regular one. The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the modules that I'll be using are enabled, and I know Breakpoint for sure is enabled by default. As you can see there. But then we have responsive images, even though Spiral Core is not enabled by default. So I'm going to install or enable that. Okay, so that's done. If I go back to configuration, and now under media, we have a new option. This is confusing because, as you see here, this is image styles, and now we have responsive image styles. So this is what used to be the Breakpoint module. Now it's responsive images. So when I go here, the way this works is I look at it as a set or a bundle that I'm creating for handling any specific need. In the case of a banner image that I want to handle responsively, I want to create a set or a bundle that allows me to do all the different things that I want to do with that image at different breakpoints. So I'm going to start by creating a responsive image style, and I still like to think of a set or a bundle, that because at the end it'll become that. So I'm going to call this, you can call it anything. I'll call it banner image. You can call it a hero image or anything you want if you're creating, depending on what you're doing, and that way it'll make more sense as you're configuring things. If you use names that make sense, it'll make things easier for you. The Breakpoint group, this is in Drupal 7 you will have to create your media queries and then create a group out of that. In Drupal 8 you don't have to do that because you have your breakpoints already in the YAML file. The only thing you would need to do is choose your theme, and that way you'll be able to read the breakpoints that you have on the YAML file from your theme that we saw earlier.
A breakpoint group is basically just your YAML file.
Exactly.
Okay. We should change the name for that because...
Right, yeah, it makes no sense to me. Absolutely. I agree. It makes no sense. Breakpoint group is just, yeah. So if I go here, you will see the things that, and by the way, I don't see the 2x here. You may be wondering, I remember my YAML file had a 2x. It's because I haven't cleared my cache. And I'm not going to do it now because I'm already in the middle of this. But once I clear it, you'll see that the 2x multiplier that I added myself will show up here. In addition, this, I said before that I had, and I should have done this, I said before that I modified one of the breakpoints or media queries to just be minimum width on that YAML file. And I don't see that change here because, again, I haven't cleared my cache. So I'll do it in a minute, and you'll see the changes happen. So there is my breakpoint group. The thing that I can do here, too, is choose a backup file. And, again, as I said before, because the support for this is so good, the only time you may use a backup file is if you run into errors. You can choose any of the image styles that you created or the ones that come with core. I can say banner small, so if anything goes wrong, I'll use the smallest image possible, so at least display something on my page. And here's where it gets a little tricky, is that you get these options to choose from this is where you're telling the browser, I have these images, and here are their widths in relation to the viewport width. Here are the image sizes. I'm letting you choose the best one possible. This is kind of what we're doing here. It looks confusing. The first thing is that do not use this breakpoint. That I don't see any use case where I would use this, to be honest with you. I can't think of anything where I will use this option. What we saw yesterday, the session yesterday, is with this one here, where you can actually select a image style, and this is excellent for the art direction purpose. If you want to provide a cropped version of that image, because you will have already an image style that is cropping your image the way you want it, or that you will crop the image when you're uploading the image on that particular field. We're not going to use that. What we're going to use the source set and sizes attributes, which is what we've been talking about. And here is where you specify those values that we're talking about, Derek, where you say, okay, if the image is, if it's a large screen, 33% the image, otherwise let's show it at 100%. So you can do something like that. Let's say here 33% view width or 100% view width. It will be something like that. Okay. We're going to use this 33% for now, and so what we're doing here, we're providing the source set to Drupal. We're saying we want this image to be 33% relative to the viewport width, and here are the images that you have to choose from. And you, browser, make the decision which is the best image to use. The browser is so smart that it can detect network issues. So based even on that, it will be able to provide you with the best image possible. So it's something that we have no control over ourselves, but the browser can definitely detect that. So that's one.
I have a question.
Yes.
So in the case of browsers like, say, Safari, that doesn't support all of this stuff, how does it decide? Does it default to one of those three you would select there, you know?
Well, it doesn't support that. You mean the picture element, or?
Yeah, this supports picture element. Is that?
Well, but because the picture responsive images, technically the picture element includes the Picturefill, polyfill, it closes that gap.
Okay.
So it's supported. Yeah. Yeah. If you were doing this outside of Drupal, you wouldn't be using the picture element. You were using just the image tag. So that goes out of the window there as far as the issue with the support. Let me do the same thing here. So I said, so for large screens, right, or large for a larger viewport width, I say I want that image to be 33% of that viewport. Before I go too deep into that, I want to show you here what we have here. When you saw that YAML file earlier, and we looked about the weight of each of the breakpoints, and I said that is very important. It plays a big factor on how your browser reads those breakpoints. This is what I was talking about. Is we're starting with the biggest breakpoint, because think about it. If we have a smartphone rendering our page, the smartphone is not going to be able to match the big breakpoint because it's not big enough. So it'll move on to the next one. It may be able to match the middle one, maybe not. It all depends on the size of the smartphone. But if it doesn't match it, then it moves to the smaller one, and it will use that. The size of my laptop, if I render the page, I may be able to match the big breakpoint because my screen is big enough to match it. And as soon as it matches it, it'll ignore everything that comes after that. So that's why we want to make sure that the order of our breakpoints is in an order that makes sense, because if I put the biggest one first, even my large screen will be able to match the small breakpoint, and it'll ignore all the rest of the ones, even if the first one is wrong. Yes?
So the highest weight gets matched first?
No, the lowest weight. The weight 0 is on top. I'm sorry.
It looked like in your YAML file
Yeah.
it was the opposite way.
It was mobile is a 0 because you wanted to
Match last.
much less. Let me see here. Let me bring that up real quick because yeah, that's a good point. Believe it or not, in Drupal 7 it's a little more clear because you can actually choose the order of the breakpoints. Let me go back to that here. So 0 is mobile. middle 2. I'm gonna have to do a little more read on this. Yeah, good catch there, because to me the bigger the weight, the heavier, right? So it should drop to the bottom,
Yeah.
right? It may be that we need to change this order.
Yeah, it's sort of counterintuitive inside Drupal because typically our weights are the other way around.
Right, and that's kind of what's confusing. Yeah, good question there. This is the changes that I made before, that I said before, that I had removed some of the stuff here and added this here. When I clear my cache, you'll see that those changes will reflect. So, but visually, when we look at our, where'd it go? Sorry, just, is that it? Nope. Man, here we go. Is that it?
I thought it was in a different screen or a different.
Oh, I see.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. So for middle size screens, we're gonna make this, let's say, 70% width, and again, same image styles that we created earlier. Again, we're just letting the browser choose which image style is the best. And for mobile, we're going to say we're gonna 100% with the same image styles. And the reason I was thinking for a while, why would I use the same image styles, even larger image styles on smartphones? Because again, the browser may be able to detect, you know what, the conditions of the environment are good enough that I can actually grab the largest image for this device. Or I may have already, the browser may have already downloaded a large image, and it doesn't have to download any more images for the smartphone because it already has it there. It doesn't have to make another trip to the server to download another image just because it changes breakpoint. So that, and I chose the backup image there. So I'm going to close this and save this. So now we have our banner image responsive image style set or bundle. Now we want to be able to use it. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to the field, the image field where we want to use this responsive image bundle. In this example, I'm going to use the article content type. Content types. Because it's got an image field. And that's the image field that I'll use to upload my image for this particular banner that I'm working on. It could be a custom content type that you create, either way. So here is the fields for my content type. I'm gonna go to manage display, and here's my image field. The first thing I'm going to do is change the format from image to responsive images. This is part of the responsive images module or the picture module. And once I do that, I'm able to choose a bundle or a set of responsive images that I want to use. If I have more available to me, they will be all shown here. In this case, I want to use the one that I just created. Here are the other ones that come with core. In this case, I'll use that. If you haven't done what I just did with the responsive images, choosing the right image size and all, you can actually do this step first and then click here to go and do that other step that I just did already. So
does that break you out of the workflow? So if you click that, you don't get back into where you were. Now you have to go back and
yeah.
So don't click that on my.
You see what it made me do? Okay, so I'm going to, and then you can choose to link it or not. Banner image. I'm going to update this. The one thing I was testing this yesterday. I think it wasn't working because even though I did click update, I forgot to click save down here. Just keep that in mind. All right, so now we're ready. We have our system configured. Now let's test it. Let's go to our article. We're going to create a new article.
Do you need to clear your cache?
Let's do that. I just learned that some of you may already know in Drupal 8, if you just do rebuild PHP, you can actually clear your cache. That's what I'm told. Let's see. Let's take a look and see if it's true. It doesn't give you any confirmation. That's why I wasn't sure if it actually worked. If I go here to my responsive images, edit this here. No, I guess it doesn't work. Because I see still the changes there. The things that did not change. Let me see. Rebuild.
refresh.
Yeah, it did work. No. Okay, then forget what I just said. And on this, oh, this is what it was. It's this. Another thing, by the way, Drupal 8, it's got aggregation turned on, so that's what it was. What was that?
It's such a pain.
Oh man, I don't get it. Let me save this and try the rebuild command again, just to see if I.
Beta for you.
So I still haven't cleared my cache. I just disabled the aggregation. If I go back here, let me see, because that's probably why it didn't clear the cache. Responsive images.
Holds back.
Nope. Okay, so let's just clear.
That YAML file?
Good question. No.
Yeah, that helps.
Derek. Okay, so
Now
now
we go back. Let's try to rebuild
let's
one more
try.
time.
I want to make sure this works.
Live debugging.
It worked the other day.
I think it has worked for me.
It work because it's not giving you any type of form.
It only works if you have more than 20 windows open.
Less than.
Oh, that's that.
Wait, which way are we working with the weight?
Fewer than 2 people looking at
It still didn't. All right.
Everything works when people are
Let's
watching.
just do it. So let's clear. Let's
We're
reboot.
not helping. That's what it is.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. They were destroyed. Go ahead. Refresh.
Did you refresh your page? Hey!
Yay!
And now you see on the mobile, you see that we have the 2x that was not there before. We're not going to do it because my screen is not high, it's not retina, so it doesn't make any difference. But that's how you could. So in the case of if you want to support high resolution or high density images, you can create an additional image style that is twice as big the image that you would normally upload, and that way you can provide twice as big image for those screens that do support that. So let's go back and create a simple article with an image. An article. Here.
You didn't copy into your title. No.
I didn't. I'll get in a little bit. Okay, so let's see pictures. We're gonna put the picture of a beautiful butterfly. Who likes butterflies?
I'll go to.
Let me
Yes, guys. I'm not in that picture, so I'm fine.
see the butterfly there. Well, it's supposed to be a butterfly. So let me. What was that? Let me refresh here. So we'll start with the small screen first. So remember the first, we said that if the screen, the viewport width was small, that we wanted the image to be 100% the width. So that's what we see here. And if I inspect this, and I go to the network, refresh this here. Where did it go? I think I can. Was it a JPEG? Okay. It's using the 560 by 200 image style, which is the smallest image style that I created. So banner small. That's the image style. So it's using that. If I go,
why did it download two?
I don't think it's. I don't think it's. If you look at it, it's the exact same thing. It's the same token.
Oh, okay.
This, yeah. I looked at that, so it's the exact same.
The size is the same?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the size is the same. Yeah. Yeah. And then I said for the middle size viewport width, I said that I wanted to be 70%, I think. So that's what we're seeing here. The image may be the same one that we're using. Sorry, the image may be the same one because the viewport width that we have is probably let me see. Yeah, so still same image because it's able to satisfy that size. When I go to a bigger screen, I said that I wanted 33%, and that's what we're seeing here. This in fact, maybe this was not the best example because I'm probably still using the exact same image because there's no need to download the bigger image just because my screen is bigger. Right? So, in fact, maybe that is the best example because see how if I was using just a regular image breakpoints or media queries, I probably would have downloaded the larger image just because my screen was bigger. But in this case, my screen is big, but because I want the image to be 33% of the viewport, there's no need to download the big image. The smaller one can do. And so that proves the point actually perfectly. So that's kind of the gist of how this works. There are many ways in which you can configure this. Again, if you have high-resolution images that you want to support, that will be another way. You can provide additional image styles for that. And in the case of a hero image, a hero image, normally you will want the hero image to always be 100% the width of your screen, regardless of what size it is. In that case, every image style setting that you would do will be 100% view width, VW. So that way, at every given breakpoint, your image will always be 100%. That would be a very easy way to test things or to play around with things. Things get a little bit complicated when you start trying to manipulate the viewport width relative to the image size, or vice versa. But in this case, you can see we were able to accomplish that really easily. So this saves us a lot, because I said just because my image, my screen is big, that doesn't mean I need to grab a large screen, a large image. The small one would do. You got a question? Or?
So you mentioned the high-resolution images. Are you aware of a solution that exists already that allows us to change the JPEG quality factor for the high-res images? Because you can generally, if you supply a 2x image, you can get away with a JPEG factor of about 30% better than 70 or 80, which saves tremendous bandwidth, and you still get a beautiful image. So in Drupal 7, there is a JPEG quality per image style that you can set.
70, usually it's not 70% or something like that.
Yeah.
We use part of our build process when we work on our themes. One of the tasks is to use image compression. But I never actually pay attention to how much is compressing things. I know it's compressing. But one tool that I also use is called, I have it here, it's an app. It's called Image Optim. And I've used to this. You just drop the images there, and it'll compress them for you without losing any quality. And a lot of times it gives you a pretty good savings in image size there. But I don't know any Drupal-specific solution for that.
It's pre-upload, right? But the trick is, if you set your system-wide JPEG quality to say 75 out of the box, once you go to Retina images, you don't really need to deliver those at 75%. So the question is there only a solution?
Yeah.
It's like Drupal allows you to say, well, if I'm going to 2x, I could actually drop my quality down to 30% and only incur maybe a 10 or 20% file size penalty.
You could probably do it because it's usually done. That setting is usually done at the field level, right?
Yeah.
So it will apply to all the images if you change it to something else.
Exactly, which is why there needs to be a one-trip solution that moves that setting to the field
Yeah.
rather than overall.
I don't know of one that I know of. So what time is it? Okay. So any questions besides those questions?
I was just going to repeat one of my own.
I'm honored, by the way, that our friend here, Martek, is attending. So
I can say from the whole trick group that none of us know how responsive images works. So I got sent forward to learn the rest of the trick course how we actually do this. So that's
no, images has been a tricky one. It's been 5 years since we started talking about responsive design, and just now I feel like we're getting somewhere with images. Again, it's not perfect, but I think it's definitely better than what we've been working with in the past. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you could show how this would work with a little bit of art direction. So maybe if we wanted the image to become a portrait image on narrower screens.
I can probably do it quickly with just code because I don't have the module that I need for Drupal. And this one, by the way, I need to find out about this. And the weight thing is bothering me a little bit. But if I, let me see here, I'll just quickly create a new page here. Just call it. What time are we supposed to be over?
4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. So it will be I think I have to, I'm just gonna copy some. I'm gonna sheet through it because I don't have enough time. Let me see here. There was picture. Here we go. Let's try to explain this here real quick.
Okay, so you're not doing this in Drupal?
No, because there's a module that I need that it's called manual crop.
Okay.
Is where.
Well, that was more my question.
Okay.
How would you do it in Drupal?
Yeah, there's a manual. It's called manual crop, and what happens is quickly I can show you here. Is this where I was? No.
No one knows where you are.
Yeah, I don't even know where I am. Yeah. So the way it works is when you go to the image styles and you created the different image styles, regular image styles, one of the options, how you normally select scale or scale and crop, and so one of the effects that you can pick is the manual crop. And by default, it puts it at the very top, so you can then add your regular styles that you want to add. And then on that manual crop style, you can choose what type of crop you want to do. And so when you upload the image, the way we just uploaded it, that's where you get to choose how to crop the image. And you manually crop it there. And that becomes your image style. And so when you're trying to align your breakpoints with your image styles for art direction, you say, okay, for this image on this size, I wanted to grab this image style. We use the cropping portion, and it'll serve it. It's technically a version of this image, but it's cropped differently than the regular image.
And you do that on upload, right?
Yeah, during the upload process, that's where you will crop it.
And then is there a tension between that and the responsive, the source set kind of approach where the browser is choosing what to use?
No, not in that case, because in that case, you are using the picture element. So you're basing everything on media queries. So, but that's the recommended way of doing it, though.
Okay.
Yes.
But you are taking away some control from the browser.
You are a little bit, yes. But in that case, you're being more specific because that's kind of what you want. There's no way for the browser to know that you want a cropped version of that image based on the, you know what I mean? It's just no, that was beyond that. Yeah. Good question, though. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time. Thank you.